So, thank you so much, ma'am, for being here for the interview. So, so this is a interview for the You Inspire section of the Biotalk magazine, and so I'll begin with the questions. So, ma'am, you're a professor in the Biosciences Department of Minnesota State University. Can you tell me something about your responsibilities there and your experience so far?
So I do, as a part of my job, I do three things: teaching, research, and advising. So teaching means that I have courses every semester and labs to go with them that I teach. And then research is I have a research lab and students in the lab. So I do research with them, which includes doing experiments and writing grants and helping students write grants, analyzing data, putting up applications and conference papers and things like that. And then advising, since I'm in a faculty role, and it's also unique to our institution that we have an advisor for each undergraduate student. So I have about 20-ish advisees. And every semester, they're required to meet with me for about half an hour, where we talk about what courses they are going to take next so that it aligns with their interest, their curriculum, because we have it's like it's biology department. Within biology we have several majors like health and medical sciences or public health or cell and molecular biology. So we talk to them depending on what stage they are. If they're freshmen, they need a little bit more of soul searching and just talking through, what are you liking, what's going well, what's not going well. Sometimes they start on a particular track, but then they have to change gears and do something else. So we just make sure as an advisor that they're, first of all, taking the courses, the right kind of courses, and wherever they're having struggles, we can address them right then.
Okay, wow, that's great, ma'am. It's really inspiring, honestly. So, as a designer of many biosciences courses, what do you primarily focus on, and how do you ensure that your students are up to date and interested and interactive in class?
So, as a teacher and one of the newer generation, as compared to many of the older teachers, it's little. So, our pedagogical approaches have changed a lot, right? And also in the online environment now, it's totally different. So, my go-to approach has been very hands-on. I think hands and brain go together. So if I have a lab with my course, I'm fortunate that way because then I definitely make use of those hands, that I make them do things and feel and touch and tell me what's going on, kind of thing. If it's a lecture based class, I again have made it pretty interactive where there are a lot of strategies that I use. We call them active learning.
Okay.
So my courses are designed to incorporate those active learning strategies where it's not like the last thing that I want in my class is students passively listening to a lecturer who's going on and on about something, right? I want them to give back to me. I know the things, but I don't want to be a God sent person on the stage. I want them to be involved in creating that knowledge and asking questions, and. So we do a lot of active learning strategies, different ways to go about it. Um, and then of course content is important,
Mhm.
and I teach content like immunology, which is very you have to be up to date with it, because with COVID-19, for example, things are changing, right?
Yeah.
Even the basic knowledge of immunology is changing as a result of that. So keeping up with the content and bringing in concepts. So very importantly, I try to focus on concepts because I think they stay, especially at undergraduate level, because you're building the foundation. You won't remember every single thing, but if you know the concept, then you can apply it at multiple different places.
That's true. That's true. So, can you tell me something about your research in immunology, ma'am? What kind of projects have you mentored?
So I primarily work on allergic asthma. That's the research domain that I mostly focus on for the lab work. Um, I work with a model of Aspergillus fumigatus. It's a type of a fungus.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's present everywhere in the environment. Everybody inhales it, but there's a subset of that population who would get affected by the inhalation of those spores. So either if they don't have a robust immune system, then it takes over their body. They can get to the brain and kill the people. So it's very common in ICU settings, in cancer patients, or in HIV patients. There's another subset where you're not immunocompromised, but you are sensitive to the spores, so allergic reaction. And that presents a lot of problems in these people too, because fungal asthma, as we call it, is very severe type of asthma.
Mhm.
So we have a mouse model in our lab that works with that. We look at immune response, we look at what changes, structural changes happen in the lung. And a lot of my mentoring goes towards that. I also work with cells, so cell culture, those kind of projects. But again, falling within the realm of environmental exposures and immune response to that. And of course, microbiology. So I've worked with antibiotic resistance type of projects, quite a quite a variety. I also do education research. So since I am an educator, so
Yeah.
we look for strategies to make our educational strategies better. So we collect data that if we implement a change in our approach, is it actually working? So that's called as educational research. And I'm a part of that as well.
Wow, ma'am. That's honestly, having such teachers who put in so much effort to teach us, that's really great. So you urge your students to be focused. So what do you recommend students to do in order to, identify their interests and develop feel like skills in their particular field?
So I've seen a variety of students, right? So there are students who are from the get-go, they'll know this is the path they want to follow.
Mhm.
And let's say they want to go to physician assistant school, then they'll be doing all the things that needs to be there for physician assistant school. They're pretty clear-headed by themselves, so they'll ask me very specific questions. Where do I get this for physician assistant? Where do I get that? So I have to just make sure that I'm giving them the answers that they're asking me questions for. Others need a little bit more help, so my best strategy advising brings it up. And then my research students, we spend a lot of time together, so you get to talk to them, what are their interests. And really, to keep them focused, it's more about listening to them and watching their behaviors. So for many of them, they would say that, let's say they love lab work,
Mhm.
but when it comes time to do the lab work, they're not really enjoying that part. That means their heart is not in there, right? So
Yeah.
then I look for, okay, what else do you like? Sometimes there's a time to have that conversation
Mhm.
that you're saying this, but you're not doing this. Let's talk about what is helping you. And for me, I think that part is really important, because if their heart is not in it, you can make them do something, but that's a half-hearted effort, and I don't enjoy that. So I
Yeah.
really talk, basically, listen and watch their behaviors. They're my friends, they're my collaborators.
Mhm.
So I approach them with that perspective.
Okay. And so, since you've dealt with a lot of undergraduate students, ma'am, how important do you think are publications for students from life sciences and biosciences field? Like, is the relevance of a project judged from their publication?
For undergraduate research, so it shows the commitment to the project. So if an undergrad student gets a publication, that means they were involved in that project enough to bring it to that point. However, so it depends on what kind of, what are you looking for? So if you're looking for an undergraduate student, whether it's important for an undergraduate student who wants to go into research, absolutely yes. If it is an undergraduate student who wants to do something else in a professional setting, then not as much.
Mhm.
At any point, a publication is a good thing. For a faculty member, our expectation is not to publish. Our expectation is to engage them, because this is early on that we are setting. We don't want to kill their interest
Yeah.
at this stage.
Yeah.
So publication pressure is not there on them. If we get to that point, and we all strive for that because we know the value of that, then absolutely a plus. And
Mhm.
we strive for that. It's just that with undergraduate, because we have, you're basically starting out with a toddler, right?
Mhm.
As compared to a full-blown teenager in
Yeah.
driving a car. So the constraints are equally limiting, right? So
Mhm.
you're teaching a toddler to basically hold the steering wheel first and push the brake at the right button, which is, there's too much to expect out of a toddler.
Yeah.
So it's just slow, and you often, once in a while, you'll get a student who's so passionate about it that they'll be driving the project, and they'll be doing everything to get it to publication. And they would be very clear about that right from freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
The other constraint with undergraduate research is that, unlike PhD or masters, they're not bound to stay until they complete the project. They are with you only for their 4-year degree period, right? And once they are done, they're graduating. So that turnover is very rapid in undergraduate. So even if a student started on a project which they could not complete for 4 years, there's no way that you can hold them back and tell them, oh, you need to complete, otherwise you're not going to get to graduate. That's
Yeah,
not the case.
that's true. Okay, so ma'am, what are your expectations from students entering the class? How do you equip them to make a productive career after that?
Couple of different things. And number one, most important thing that I look for is show up.
Okay.
If you're saying that you are going to do something, show up. Even if you don't know how to do it,
Mhm.
we'll talk about it and we'll learn together. But if you are telling me that you will be there at 12 p.m. Every day,
Mhm.
I want you to see you there at 12 p.m. on the desk. Even if it is virtual, you have to be there,
Mhm.
right? Because it's like, I equate it to having a canvas in your workshop, an artist canvas. And the only way you can paint something, even if you don't know what to put on that canvas, is by actually going to the workshop.
Yeah.
So that's number one. If the students stop showing up, that's the number one thing to
Mhm.
kind of not take it further. That means their heart is not in it.
Yeah.
Then we need to have a conversation.
Mhm.
Other things that I look for is that, okay, I've lost track of your question
Uh,
here.
should I repeat it now?
Yeah, so they stay on track with their future plans, right?
Yeah.
So I make them do a lot of reflections, in the sense that I would make them write at the end of every semester.
Okay.
What are the kind of things they started out to achieve? Did they achieve them? And what are the next steps that you want to take? And
Okay.
those things include anywhere from short-term goals to long-term. So as a mentor, one of the things that I watch for, if you're looking to graduate at this time, then you want to put all your eggs in that basket of graduation.
Mhm.
Then you need to cut down on something like your work, because our students work a lot too on the side.
Mhm.
So I talk to them and make sure that they're staying on track for graduation. If they
Okay.
are, um, that's the number one thing I think, is if they start working, it's
Mhm.
easy to get sidetracked and lose track of what's their long-term goal, which is not helpful because it's a short-term benefit for money.
Mhm.
However, it doesn't help them in the long run because they've lost track of anything better that was supposed to come after that.
Yeah. Right. Um, so, ma'am, what are your future plans? Like, how do you think you can contribute to further to promote our field? Is there any way you can help Indian students get, more application-based knowledge and opportunities in our field?
Oh, Indian students getting more application based. Yes, I have a strong feeling for that, because when I was a student,
Hmm.
we had labs, and second half of our day, I was a pharmacist by training from Delhi University.
Okay.
We had second half of our day planned for labs, and many times they were good labs. Teachers were very dedicated, but sometimes they were not as good. Like microbiology lab, we didn't have water throughout the semester for doing microbiology.
Yeah.
Then I feel like that's where we need to be a little bit more creative and innovative, because if we don't have a lab or a hands-on way to gain knowledge, get out into the community,
Yes.
look for a problem to solve. There's so many. And being a little bit more savvy with, you can find ways to figure out the problem to the solution, whether it was anything. Microbiology is out in the open in the environment.
Yeah.
Figure out what needs to be done. Microbiology is just one example. It could be anything in the community. An old age home could have its problems, right? A community grocer could have its problems. What is that problem? Trying to figure that out from that person and then applying it to a broader scale.
Yes. I think such things we can learn only from a teacher and a professor. So Thank you for that, ma'am. I'm sure our viewers and our readers will gain a lot from this interview. So, yeah, this is where I'll end the